General Thexamori of the Kavarian Imperial Fleet stood before the Galactic Council's emergency session, his 4 eyes darting nervously between the assembled representatives of 23 species. The crystalline chamber, normally filled with the confident chatter of galactic politics, had fallen into an uncomfortable silence. Honored delegates, Thexamori began, his translator struggling with the tremor in his voice. I stand before you today to report on the most catastrophic military defeat in recorded galactic history. Councillor Vexisha, the Zephyrian representative, whose species prided themselves on tactical superiority, leaned forward. Surely you exaggerate, General. The reports mention some setbacks against the human colonies, but… Setbacks? Thexamori's scales shifted from blue to a sickly yellow. We lost 3 full battle fleets, 17,000 of the galaxy's finest warriors. Gone. In less than 6 standard hours. A ripple of shocked murmurs passed through the chamber. The Kavarian Empire possessed the 2nd largest military force in the galaxy, with soldiers bred specifically for combat and equipped with technology that could level continents. How many human soldiers did you face? Asked Ambassador Clinth, the insectoid hive mind representative. Their population records suggest they have maybe 50 million trained combatants across all their colonies. Thexamori's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. We didn't face human soldiers. The chamber erupted. Species that had been at war for millennia forgot their differences, united in their confusion and growing dread. Then who? Demanded Supreme Commander Gorth Val of the Titan Republic. What force could possibly… We faced human children, Thexamori interrupted, his admission cutting through the noise like a plasma blade through tissue. The silence that followed was deafening. Councillor Vexisha's advanced neural implants flickered as she processed this information. That's impossible. Children cannot operate military equipment. They lack the cognitive development for… Show them, Thexamori said to his aide, a trembling Kavarian lieutenant who activated the chamber's holographic display. The recording began with standard military footage, Kavarian dropships descending toward the human agricultural colony of New Eden. Intelligence had indicated the settlement was defended by perhaps 100 adult humans with primitive kinetic weapons. We expected routine pacification, Thexamori narrated as the footage showed his forces landing. The colony's adult population had been evacuated 3 days prior. Our scanners detected only life signs consistent with human juveniles. On screen, the first Kavarian units advanced through seemingly empty fields toward a collection of modest buildings. Then the killing began. The delegates watched in horrified fascination as the ground beneath the advancing soldiers erupted. But instead of military-grade explosives, the traps were almost insultingly crude, buried fertilizer bombs that should have been easily detected by Kavarian sensors. How did they mask the signatures? Whispered General Yithmar of the Crystalline Hegemony. They didn't, Thexamori replied grimly. They relied on our assumptions. Our soldiers were scanning for military-grade threats. These devices registered as agricultural equipment because they were agricultural equipment, repurposed with modifications so simple that our advanced targeting systems dismissed them as harmless. The footage continued. Kavarian soldiers took cover behind farm equipment, only to discover too late that the machinery had been rigged with delayed charges. Others fell victim to hunting snares modified with salvaged ship components, devices that could never threaten a prepared military force, but proved devastatingly effective against soldiers who weren't looking for them. This is guerrilla warfare, observed Councillor Vexisha. Crude, but… Watch, Thexamori interrupted. The camera view switched to aerial reconnaissance. Through the smoke and chaos, small figures darted between buildings. Human children, none appearing older than 15, standard years. They moved with impossible coordination, like a single organism with dozens of limbs. They had no commanding officer, Thexamori explained. No communication network we could jam, no hierarchy we could disrupt. They simply knew what each other was thinking. Ambassador Clinth's compound eyes focused intently on the display. Hive mind behavior, But humans aren't a collective species. How is this possible? The footage showed a Kavarian squad cornering 3 human children in what appeared to be a school building. The children, a boy no more than 12 and 2 girls, even younger, stood calmly as the heavily armed aliens approached. One of the girls held up a small device. "Surrender," the squad leader commanded in broken human language. "You are children. We will not harm you if—" The building exploded. Not from the device the girl held. That was a decoy. The real charges had been planted in the Foundation weeks earlier and triggered by a timer none of the Kavarian soldiers had thought to look for. "They sacrificed themselves," whispered Supreme Commander Gorthvel, his massive frame shuddering. "Children. Actual children." "It gets worse," Thex Mori said, his scales now a deep, nauseated green. "We pulled back and called for orbital bombardment, targeted the remaining buildings from space, standard pacification protocol. The view shifted to satellite imagery. Precision plasma strikes eliminated every structure in the settlement. The heat signatures of the remaining children vanished instantly. "Mission accomplished," said the recorded voice of the Kavarian fleet commander. "Threat neutralized." For exactly 17 minutes and 34 seconds the colony appeared completely lifeless. Then the ground began to move. "Underground tunnels," Thex Mori explained unnecessarily as the delegates watched in growing horror. Every building in the colony was connected. They had evacuated to prepared positions the moment our ships appeared in orbit. What emerged from those tunnels defied every assumption about human limitations. The children had spent their 17 minutes of apparent death modifying salvaged Kavarian equipment from previous skirmishes. Weapons designed for soldiers twice their size had been jury-rigged into suicide vests. Damaged fighter craft had been stripped for parts and converted into ground-based artillery. "They turned our own technology against us," Thex Mori continued. "Equipment that should have required years of training to operate, they had learned to use in minutes. Not efficiently. Half of their modifications should have killed them just from using them, but they didn't care about survival. They cared about maximizing damage." The final sequence showed the children's counterattack. Using captured Kavarian anti-aircraft weapons, they began systematically destroying the orbital bombardment fleet. Ships that had seemed safely out of range found themselves targeted by weapons that shouldn't have been able to reach them, operated by children who shouldn't have been able to lift them. "We tried to retreat," Thex Mori said as the footage showed Kavarian vessels attempting to withdraw. "The children had somehow networked the colony's communication array with our own equipment. They broadcast a signal on all frequencies." The chamber's speakers crackled to life with a recording of a young human voice speaking in perfect galactic standard. "Tell the galaxy what you learned here today. Tell them that humans don't have soldiers. We have children who play war games. Tell them that these children learned everything they needed to know from games they play for fun. Tell them what happens when children stop playing." The recording ended. The chamber remained silent for a full minute before Counselor Vexishaw found her voice. "How many survived, of the children?" Thex Mori's scales had faded to almost transparent. "All of them." "That's impossible. We saw them." "They had built evacuation tunnels beneath their evacuation tunnels," Thex Mori explained. "The suicide attacks were delivered by remote-controlled drones made from toys and farming equipment. The real children had been safely underground, controlling everything through gaming interfaces they had constructed from salvaged electronics." Ambassador Clinth's antennae twitched rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. "You're telling us that human children playing what they considered games destroyed 3 Kavarian battle fleets?" "I'm telling you," Thex Mori said, his voice barely audible, "that we attacked a colony defended by human children who thought war was a form of entertainment. They didn't fight like soldiers. They fought like children playing the most elaborate game ever devised." Supreme Commander Gorthval rose slowly from his seat. "Where are these children now?" "Unknown," Thex Mori admitted. "They vanished after the battle, but before they left they sent one final message to our fleet." He activated the recorder one last time. A chorus of young human voices filled the chamber, singing what their translators identified as a traditional human children's song. "Hide and seek, ready or not, here we come. You can run, you can hide, but we'll find you just for fun. The singing faded, replaced by a single child's voice. Thanks for the new toys and for teaching us how the galaxy fights wars. We promise to share what we learned with all our friends back home. Game over. As the implications of those words sank in, delegate after delegate began to understand the true horror of what had occurred. The Kavarian Empire hadn't just been defeated by human children. They had provided those children with advanced military technology, tactical knowledge, and most